All right. Uh, well, uh, welcome to the first of the collab reviews that we've had in the Ussuri cycle, and it's probably going to be the last because tomorrow is feature freeze. So, I mean, we're actually doing this quite late, and we've only done this a few times before, and only on features where there's a lot of code churn. At the same time, reviewers don't really have a whole lot of context because, I mean, at the get-go, this is getting implemented with a proprietary backend, and we don't really have the kind of visibility or the test environments to see how things are working, right? Besides, of course, trust the developers to have done their amount of testing. So this is both an interest of curiosity of how things are supposed to work, give you feedback, as well as to take this review forward. So we can hash out any issues and identify any gaps, if any, um, and let you know well in advance while we close it out for this cycle. So that's the goal here. Thanks, all of you, for joining. We're not going to spend time on introductions because this crowd knows each other. Besides, I mean, of course, that's how Andre looks. For those of you that didn't see him, uh, and you've met Vida and Vicky, and of course, you know Tom. So let's go. I think so. Do you want to take over, Douglas?
Yeah.
Awesome.
I'm planning to share my my screen so we can go through. I'll talk a little about the spec, and then we can go to the code. Should be pretty much. Let me try to share the screen. I need to share one Windows. That's this one. Okay. Are you guys seeing my browser? Yeah.
Yes,
Yes.
we are.
Okay, so this is the spec that was purchased on Ussuri. This is the feature that we are proposing for this cycle, and this is an improvement that we are proposing for creating share from Snapshot. Basically, we are proposing some improvements on the scheduler and the manager, so we are able to schedule this new share from Snapshot into another pool or another backend that might be supported by a driver, and will be choose with the help of new filters and a new waiter. So basically, uh, without this change that we are proposing, uh, every share created from Snapshot are landing on the same pool. I don't know any vendor or any user case that is using a flag that we already have on Manila. That is a config option actually. That is to use the scheduler for creating from Snapshot. So basically, without this flag, that's the default is to be disabled. Without this flag, the share will go directly to the manager and will land on the same pool, same host. So basically, we are using the same flag to enable the scheduler to choose a proper a proper destination for the new share from a snapshot, and we are providing some improvements. From the scheduler side, we are proposing a filter in order to identify compatible backends for this new share from a snapshot, and we are proposing a new waiter also. The idea of this new waiter is to place the new share more close to the parent share. The idea here is to be more efficient if the new share will land on a different pool that's closer to the search share. So this is the new waiter. The idea is to have a higher score when it goes to the source pool. And we are also we are proposing a change on the driver call create from Snapshot. So we are proposing to change this API call from asynchronous call to a asynchronous call. So an asynchronous call means that if this data copy could take too long to be finished, and the idea is that the driver returns a pending state, an intermediary state, that is a new state that we are proposing that is creating from Snapshot, and the user will know that this share from Snapshot is still creating on the backend, and the share manager will handle a periodic get share status call in order to get update from the driver about these pending shares that are still on creating on the backend. So this is the major changes that we are proposing, and the idea is to go to the code, right? And I have here, no, here we have this diagram. So these are the changes that we are proposing. This blue box are the feature itself, and this orange box is the implementation of the app driver that depends on all these changes to efficiently uh, create share from snapshot from different pools or backends. So in order to have this functionality, this improvement on the NetApp driver, we need to merge everything that we have here. So the first one is the change of the that we call core. So it's the change that contains the code from scheduler, share manager, and the API, and also some database improvements. And this is the most part of the code. We have some functional tests, and we don't have too much tests because the Manila API only will let us to choose some different AZs to place our share, so we don't have too much possibilities to create too many different tests here. A small change on the DevStack plugin to enable the user scheduler from when creating from Snapshot. And we have implementation on a first-party driver that is ZFS on Linux, and then also implements to create sharing in another backend. Let's start. If someone has some questions, feel free to ask. You ask Carlos if
So
you.
we'll actually take questions down. I mean, you can keep going,
Yeah.
and we'll I don't know, just keep noting questions down in like an Etherpad or something. I put it up over here. I'll paste it back on the review as well.
Okay.
So
I'm going
we
to
don't
ask
interrupt
Carlos.
you.
I will ask Carlos if we have something like an action item or something to change. I will ask Carlos to take note on this also.
Uh,
Surely, surely.
Okay, Carlos.
okay.
If you decide to change something on the code or to show some outputs and so on tomorrow or other day, you ask Carlos to take notes on this. So
Awesome.
I'm going through the code, and then I don't know if you have some question on a specific point. I think you can ask right away. I don't know. It's a good idea. This is the core change. Well, I'm going to follow the order of. I'll start with the share API because it's something interesting that we did here, that we fix an issue that the AZ was totally ignorant on the current release. So if the user use the AZ parameter when creating share phone snapshot, this parameter is not being considered. So this is something that we are doing here. So if the user does not provide an AZ, he will get the AZ from the parent share. And also see if the user provides a different AZ from the parent share, and the user scheduler when creating share from snapshot is disabled, we are raising an error. So the user will know that the share that he's creating is not landing on that AZ. This is an issue on the current release. And let me see. What we basically doing is we are getting the snapshot host, so it's the host from the parent share, and we are providing this information to the scheduler. So when creating a new instance on the API, we are providing to the scheduler additional information that is the snapshot host. So this snapshot host will be used for the new filter and the new waiter to schedule this new share. And as we can see, this is the major changes that we are doing on the share API. So actually, the code already has a call for the scheduler. So if a destination host was not defined yet, he will call the scheduler, or in case that the host already defined before, he would just forward the request just directly to the manager. So this host is defined here. So if the scheduler is not set, you will get the parent share host, and will land on the same pulse and backend. Next on the
It's good clarification, but that's kind of confusing, right? I mean, there's host and there's snapshot host, but they're actually the same thing for the most part.
We are telling about the snapshot host.
Yeah.
Might be confusing because of the name. I don't know. If,
Let me think about that and see if we can improve that. Maybe add some doc or something, like a
okay.
comment or something. But go on,
Sure.
please. Thanks.
Or a parent host, maybe something. After that, we are filling the request spec that will go to the scheduler with the parent host that is called a snapshot host there. And this, since the user can set an AZ, you go to the usual filters, like availability zone filters, and filter hosts there are not from the same AZ. And additionally, we have a new feature that we're proposing, that is create phone snapshot filter. Basically, this filter will work just for creating share phone snapshot. So if you don't have a snapshot or a snapshot host, this filter will do nothing. You accept all hosts, but basically what we are doing is we are filtering hosts that are not compatible. Basically, the idea is to match two things. The host is a good host and it's a acceptable host, if it's on the same backend. So basically, we are considering that the host that is on the same backend that the parent share are going to be accepted. And for hosts that are on on different backends, we are considering if they have regarding the same replication domain, and they have the replication type enabled. They are also hosts that will be good for place the new share. So basically, we are filtering share that are not in the same backend and backend that are not in the same replication domain from the parent share. This is what the filter does. And still on the scheduler, we have our new waiter, the host affinity waiter, as we define on the specification. The idea is to choose the best host to place the new share. So if the new host is closer to the parent share pool, it will be a best choice. So we are providing the score based on this. We are considering also if they are in the same AZ or different AZs. And as I show in the create from snapshot filter, we are doing this and we are doing this waiter. We're doing this just for create from snapshot. So we are not applying scores for share creation that does not have snapshot ID or snapshot host. And basically, what this waiter does is to apply these rules here at above.
Yeah, while it is returning 0, it just means that this where has no impact on scheduling. That's all it means. Although it also probably would mean that probably this is the best host, but we're not going to weigh this host because it's not from a snapshot.
Yeah. From scheduler, we have something on the filter itself. This is a small change. Basically, we are adding the replication domain info. Before was considering adding this information only when we have a replication filter acting on the scheduler, but now we have another filter that needs this information. So this part of the code was changed to include the replication domain on the request spec when creating from snapshot also.
Okay. Not a big fan of generators. Is there no better way to write that code? You could just use list comprehension, perhaps.
Sorry, I didn't get.
No, you've used next, which is a generator. So that's probably, yeah, a little bit confusing for readability.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, actually, it was just a part of the code that was.
Oh, that was already here?
Yeah.
Okay, so and it was probably written by me. Sorry about that. Go ahead.
No problem. No. We just try to not change too many things and break stuff, but next is not for sure easy to read.
So dumb question real quick. I know we're supposed to put them in the but this is not so much for review, just for context here. If a backend does not implement replication, and does implement a dumb, slow create from snapshot async, how do the schedulers filters work with it? Just can you tell us at a high level? I can figure this out, but I just thought it'd be useful for a context
Yeah.
question.
Yeah, this is a good question. Uh, you won't be able for the way that we implemented this feature. You won't be able to schedule this new shard to that backend unless the filter.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. I'm wondering
Yeah.
if I can put this in the questions then, but I wonder if we want to allow for a config option or something that allows for that possibility. It's very un-NetApp-y, but I think we can't assume that there won't be backends that have a reason to do that.
Yeah, another option would be creating a separated backend configuration to identify this kind of possibility, but you're reusing the replication, assuming that uh, drivers that will implement you use replication on the backend for doing this.
Yeah, and
As
I
we
don't
are
think we
doing,
can.
yeah.
Yeah, I don't
Wait,
think we can assume that in general.
wait a second though. Replication domain is not a backend specific option. It's a Manila shared driver option.
Yeah.
So when let's say, I mean, there is a backend that wants to do a slow path, you still want to be sure that the backend can handle copying between two backends, right? So I mean, it's something that the admin has to specify in the backend section, sure, but it is basically the admin telling you that yeah, that these two backends can somehow copy data between
Copy
each other.
data.
That wording is probably bad because it says replication domain, and it probably indicates that there's some sort of share replication going on, but replication domain is not specific to the share replication feature. Um,
So
all
it's
it means is you can
more about
just
reachability
reachability and yeah,
something
between
like
these two
that.
backends, and they're somehow compatible enough to do some sort of data copy between themselves.
Yeah.
So you're suggesting we would set that option in those backends,
Right.
and that we would maybe comment the hell out of it in the code or something.
No, not
I
really.
don't think someone coming in here will understand replication to mean, oh,
Oh,
it's not replication.
I see. I see. That's a good point. We should probably. I mean, I added a similar comment on that on the other scheduler flag. Use the scheduler when creating from Snapshot. We probably want to enhance this help text over there to say even if you use this option, you need to be sure that you set replication domain, and you need to be sure that the backends are somehow going to be compatible uh, to this thing. Otherwise, your scheduling is always going to fail, perhaps if you don't have space on your source backend.
Yeah, and Gautam, I get your point, which is we need to constrain the backends to the set of ones where the data copy or data motion or whatever you want to call it can actually succeed. And
Yeah,
that's what this filter is doing. But naively, yeah, it sure seems like it's assuming replication.
that is true. I mean, we could go ahead and rename that option to something, and just like follow a standard deprecation, but call it something like compatible for copy backends or something like that. Uh, Something more generic than replication, because replication indicates a technology of sorts.
So considering this, should we remove this? Because we are assuming that the replication type is set on the shard type, for example. You're not just assuming that they're in the same replication domain. So
Oh yeah, you should. Yeah, because
something
this
that
is not.
is not always true.
That's true. That's right. So, I mean, technically, I mean, you could be using snapshots, but you could you be using your NetApp without setting up replication?
We are
Is that
using,
possible?
in the case of that app, yes.
Yeah, so think about it this way, right? You don't have paired V servers, then you would not put them in the same replication domain. It would be actually silly to do that. So yeah, I mean, at the off chance, I mean, this one does not make sense. Like you shouldn't be checking the share type for replication at all when you're trying to create from Snapshot. But what's the logic here, though?
Yeah,
It's not none and snapshot replication domain and snapshot replication domain equals replication time. Okay, yeah, that makes sense. So even without that, you still have your behavior preserved.
yeah. This is something that I was adding in the latest patch sets.
Okay.
Probably we're going to remove.
Yeah, great point. So if let's assume we don't uh, change the name of the configuration option, and let's assume Ceph is the backend that can actually copy between these things. So in your Ceph backend sections, you will have a new config option saying replication domain, and it'll be set to a random string, just like availability zone is. And Manila will let two Ceph backends look like they're compatible when doing this whole create share from snapshot flow, going through the scheduler.
Right, right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, makes sense.
But I think, yeah, it's worth, I don't know, maybe opening a launchpad bug or something and fixing the name of the config option. Uh, I don't suppose we want to do that in this patch set.
Yeah, probably no. Do not mix things. Okay, so from the scheduler changes. Not sure if I have something important here. No, just the list of new share new waiter. I'm going to move to the share. I will start with the driver interface. Drivers. First thing, create phone snapshot call is being changed, and a first thing that we are changing is to adding a new parameter. So we are providing now the parent share when creating from snapshot. This is something that make a lot of difference for us because we need to at least identify where the parent share host is, which share server he was using for DHSS rule, and so on. So these are important information that we need when creating this sharing in different backends. Another change for this call is the return information that we are going to provide. This is without this change, create from snapshot is a synchronous call that expects a list of export location. And what we are proposing is to change this and provide and let the driver returns a model update. In this model update, he can give us the current status of its share. So if this create new share take too long to be finished, he can just return asynchronously saying that the current status of this share is creating from snapshot, and this operation will continue to be pending, and the share manager will ask from time to time to the drivers if the what is the current status for this pending share. So he will ask you for updates. So this asynchronous call is something that we need to do in order to not have this call locked for too long. And this is a simple what we are expecting now. It's a status and a list of export location. If its status is creating from snapshot, probably the export location will be an empty list, and we are okay with that on the share manager. This is the change that we are providing to this interface, and we are also adding a new driver call that gets share status. The idea here is to be a periodic call that your manager will trigger to the driver in order to get an update status for share that I on a pending state. And right now we have just the creating from snapshot as a pending state that the share manager, we were going to request updates to the driver. So this interface expect as a return the current stats of the share, a list of export location also, and a progress view that the driver can say if he are getting some progress on this, and the user we will be able to identify if it is share creation will take more time to finish. So yeah, this is the driver changes. And let's see. You can ask
Only, I mean, yeah, I think we should dive deep into the manager to get
the next one is the manager.
Okay.
So here. So this is the call create sharings. This is the create share instance. It's the same call for create share for snapshot or not, and we are changing how how we call the create share from snapshot. So we are providing now the parent share info. So when we have a snapshot reference, that means that we are creating from a snapshot. We are providing this additional info, and we are expecting a model update now. But we also have this backward compatibility. So if the driver answer a list, we are considering that he is still using the old mode, and he's returning just the export location list. So this part is just to work as a backward compatibility. And from the model update, we'll get the status and the export location. Basically, we are going to use this info to update the share. Yeah, fine here. This is if the driver answer a different status. We still have the export location update if provided.
So you're not handling an error state over there, I think.
No, because this is the same way that was working before. It was handling the exception with creating fairphone
Okay.
exception. So
Cool. So we're still expecting them to raise an exception
Yeah.
and have that share set to error.
Yeah, it's working in the same way for this part. So it was expecting a raise exception, So driver
Makes sense.
you continue to raise exceptions, and then the share will go to the state to register
Okay.
it on the same way.
Makes sense.
But
That's
we are not,
consistent. The other driver interface is the one where you're expecting them to
yeah.
send you an error state.
But if the driver implements the new interface, we expect that at the available operating from snapshot only. That's
Okay.
and we will
Yep.
raise our error.
Makes sense.
So basically, we'll continue to update the share status. So instead of just updating to available as before, we can update to available or to creating from snapshot, and everything continues the way of before. The progress we are also setting now. So we have this new property for share instance, and if not provided, we are setting 100% when available, else 0. Here we have a lot of changes that actually are something related to the SQL alchemy issues of moving SQL objects to inside the driver. So we have some issues with that.
Yeah, I mean,
Um,
so I mean, basically the point was that drivers were reusing the objects as a way to set some data rather than just get the data. So we had to like forcibly convert them into a dictionary. Because when you try to set something on a DB this thing, you could get detached DB errors.
yeah, exactly. Um, the other change it was to add a new periodic new periodic status update. So this is a new periodic task, and what we will do is search for share instances that are on pending state, and this pending state right now is just creating from snapshot status. And for each one, we are doing a driver called get share status. So basically, the share that are still on create from snapshot, they will be able to provide a new status if available, or if it's an error, or if it's continuing to creating from snapshot, and the share manager will be able to update this info, as also update the progress and provide this info to the user. So for each share instance, we are going to do a driver call to update its info. Here we can have 3 options: the error, or the available and create from snapshot. I decided to not raise exceptions on get share status. It seems a little bit weird, raise exception on getting a status. So we are doing here is requesting that drivers answer with a new status, an updated status that can be an error status.
Well, that makes sense. You still want to handle errors because uh, I don't know, unless you want to clarify in the driver interface documentation saying that you're not allowed to raise exceptions. Uh, I mean, you really can't trust drivers because like there are sometimes unhandled errors even in the NetApp code, right? There's a communication error to the back end. You actually bail out of that thread entirely. It doesn't look like you're moving to the next share instance at all.
Yeah, yeah. Actually, the idea was to write this on the driver interface documentation to not raise, but as
That's
you're
fine.
saying, this
No, that is fine. You can put it in the doc and force that drivers don't raise it. It's just that we'll have to then make sure when we are reviewing the next driver that implements this that um, we're going to have that same behavior captured.
yeah.
So
Uh,
it's also defensive coding to just put a try except right there uh, in your for loop.
I don't want to ever see an exception.na exception here. Just teasing you, but
Yeah, I was thinking
change
that.
something in data on tap and you don't have control of it, and it shows up.
Yep.
Now you may catch them all in the driver.
It absolutely makes sense in both situations. Then try to catch them here for sure, because you never know. And so that even if reviewers mess up or something, I mean, by mess up, I mean don't enforce what's written in the driver doc string, right?
And
I mean,
probably continue updating status and saying the user message.
yeah, exactly.
Okay. And for the data update that we receive from each get share status, we continue to handle status as available or create from snapshot and updating this on the share instance info. And if share export locations provider, we are updating the share export location on the database also.
So to be clear, the message is going to say what exactly? It just says update, which probably means that this is an unknown error.
You're saying
The user message.
here? Yeah, I think we need to create a new user message here in this, or yeah. Or
Okay,
if it's
makes
an
sense.
exception, or if it's an exception, we can just use the exception message.
No, we probably don't want to leak whatever the backend is telling us is the exception at that point, right? Like it could say storage communication exception or something. That's not what the users would want to see. But I think I mean, to for that particular feature, because it is, hey, what can I do? Should I contact my administrator, or is that something I can do? We need to provide some context. Would retrying make sense over here? Maybe it does, right? We don't know what the problem is, so they can go ahead and reclone from the snapshot again if this share fails to get created for some reason. My thing is also that, okay, so you calling this periodically, at some point, if the backend does not, um, you know, at right now, I can't tell if this share is created, but if you ask me again, I can. Is there a situation like that, like some sort of a transient error, which I got myself into right during that call, and then I just set the share status to error? Well, probably it isn't. There's something. I mean, there's nothing wrong with the share, but it's um, it's getting created. Everything is fine, but the backend somehow could not uh, get its creation status. I don't know, just a question, and we don't
Shouldn't
need
the
to.
backend just report the last status at that point? Or something that we could set that expectation, because how are we going to know the difference between the transient error and the backend?
Yeah.
If I'm a backend and I, for whatever, I don't know, my CPU is overloaded or something, or I've got a network glitch actually talking between the driver and the backend. It seems like if I'm going to report error up to the manager, then it's a known error, and otherwise it should be my own business. I can't tell you I got any further.
Okay.
Well, I'm just going to report the last status and fake it for a couple times, maybe with a retry. And if it goes on 3 times,
Then I know
it's an error. And then I told you I erred, and I got to take responsibility for that. I think it requires too much guessing, not intelligence on the part of the
share manager.
share manager to do otherwise.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay, I get a couple dumb questions. If the share becomes immediately available and we never call this update, we're going to leave progress set to null, or we're going to set it to 100%.
If it is,
Say it's a synchronous call on the back end or a very fast, async. I mean, no, it's synchronous. Let's say it's synchronous,
yeah,
right? And it immediately becomes available, so you never have to call the periodic routine.
right.
What will the progress field show for the end user?
Will be 100%.
Okay.
And this is being done on the share manager.
Yeah, you're doing that in the share manager, so we have a consistent behavior there. That I think that's right. No matter what the backend, yeah, you're doing it in the manager. It's not a matter of the backend. Now, if you similarly, if it's error, are you going to leave null, or are you going to set it to 0% null? Right?
Yeah.
If it's mirrored synchronously.
Yeah, and if it's an error, probably you'll fill with none. And
I think that's what I'm seeing. I think that's okay. I just wanted to kind of think through consistent behavior across the different drivers. So you're enforcing consistency in the manager for those. Now, okay, and you'll do that even if, are you going to set it to 100% even if it's an old style list return? Should we do that or not?
We are doing this. Let me see. Because we started the status as available.
Okay,
and
cool. And so we have consistent behavior, whether it's an old style return or a new style return with respect to the progress.
Yeah, returning synchronously, we have this status already set as available. You get the 100%.
Yes. Okay. All right, cool. Thanks.
Thank you, Tom. This is the major change on the share manager. I don't know if you guys have more questions on that part.
Oh, I have one more dumb kind of consistency question. If a backend says it's creating and goes on and immediately reports the export locations, because it kind of, on that backend, them right away before it's actually, the operation's actually completed. So a backend might decide to do that. A driver might decide to do that. Should we expose them or should we suppress them until it becomes available?
Okay. On the manager, we are updating the export location to the database if it's provided in synchronous or asynchronously. So this is.
Yeah, and I don't have an opinion on this, but I part of me thinks that maybe we should ignore it until the state becomes available.
It's possible.
Yeah, I mean,
and we must guarantee that on the get share status, the driver will provide us again the export locations.
Because we're not sender, so becoming available doesn't govern an attach. Once the export location is there and can be seen, people might try to mount.
Yeah.
Well, they can't though, because you can't, because the share status is still something that, you can't use the allow access API. So unless you have some way of mounting the share, you're not going to get it. And you just seeing the export locations, I'm not sure that is very harmful.
Yeah, I'm not going to dig in about it. It's just something I was wondering about. They're of no use until
the state
available, and it might be that they could do some harm. I don't know. Not a big deal. Just if somebody has a strong thought about it.
No, good point. I
Okay,
can't
I'm
think of
through.
what they could do.
Yeah, I'm just thinking about consistency across the different backends where they could behave differently, and the manager has an opportunity to enforce some consistency on these things.
So we are done with the share manager, and
You don't have to talk about it now, but some point talk about share groups in the manager. Wasn't that in the manager that you changed the share group processing a little bit, or was that driver?
here. Let's see. Here. Create share group from snapshot, group snapshot.
Yeah.
Yeah, because they use the same interface and create share from snapshot. So the idea here is to not break this operation, but what we are doing here is to identify if it's a list of export locations, or if it's providing the new return model. So if he's providing this new return model, we are considering that it always must be unavailable, because if this is turned to something creating from snapshot, this might lead to something that we cannot handle with this implementation. So the idea of the change is not to change the behavior when dealing with share groups, only when creating a single share from snapshot, but we need to handle this since they use the same driver interface. So this is was what we were thinking about it, and it's actually a good question. I don't know what you guys think about it. So just recapping, when creating share group snapshot, it's expected that it will always be synchronous, but it supports the both return modes.
So what happens if you have a backend that can only do the asynchronous?
At least for share group snapshot, we are expecting that it's a problem, and it's not being addressed here. But if he returns a status creating from snapshot, we are going to fail everything, because it will be too difficult to handle. To handle everything, because it should be creating all shares from this share group, right?
Yeah, and this is somewhat tangential to the main feature you're developing, but I'm wondering how we can, maybe it's just a matter of documentation and setting expectations or something, but we need to cover ourselves for this a little bit so that people don't get the wrong, and maybe even later, but add some kind of defensive code around it. I don't know. I don't have the answer right now. I just kind of want to raise the issue. And
What happens though, like you're creating this from a snapshot, and you leave it in that state because that's what the driver told you. And then you go ahead and yeah, I mean that share will also get picked up in your next periodic call. So your shares are still pending like any other shares, whether they were in a share group or they were just normal shares. Except I think it's pertinent to basically see, all of that error handling magic is gone that you had on the other side, right?
Mm,
But
but
otherwise, more or less, you're not broken.
I'm not broken how this is supposed to work. So if this shared is not available, we will raise an exception. But at the backend side, on the driver side, they may have this share created on the backend, I guess, because they will not have the chance to know that this share was updated to error, maybe.
They won't have a chance
Uh,
to know that this was
yeah,
updated to error.
at
No.
least the driver know. What will happen is that the
Oh, I
everything will
see.
go to the
So your concern right now is about this 1436 and 1437. I'm saying drop it, and allow the model update to happen. Um, and let's see. Oh, wait, hold on. Model update. Okay.
uh, I'm not sure if the share group expects that at the end of this call
Mhm.
uh, to have all the shares created from share
Created.
snapshot as a available status.
It
That
doesn't
was
because
my
it's also an asynchronous method, and so you're going to have a new share group, yes, and you're going to have a bunch of shares that probably went into creating from Snapshot, right? There's nothing that really changes because this is the termination of that call, and your next periodic thread in the manager is picking up and saying, okay, here's a bunch of shares that are created from Snapshot. I'm going to ask the driver. The driver is just going to process it like any other share because that's the expectation we have over here. The reason we're
actually,
calling into the create from snapshot is because the driver has not implemented a create from group snapshot call, which will override this call.
mm, yeah, because the time that I was seeing this, this driver call returns the share update list that contains the ID of the share and its port location that can be an empty list
Correct.
in this new driver model. Um,
And so you're going to have to just append the status as well and push it down to the database. I'm still like this thing.
yeah,
This isn't a deal breaker. It just means that you can't use this with share groups. And that was not written in the spec, so it's not an expectation of the this thing. But I mean, it definitely sounds like a bug that someone would file saying, "Hey, all of my I couldn't use this with shares created inside a group."
yeah. Okay, so should we do this right now? Is that are you saying?
Yeah. So if you remove that, I don't see what will fail. I don't know. You can think about it and correct me.
No, I can do this and take a look on the manager
Yeah,
how it works. But I think that might work. Yes. Uh, let me ask if Carlos is taking note this, or if you or Gato, if you are going to place some comments also.
I have taken some notes here. I was working in a separate Etherpad. I'm intending to I like noted all the questions you guys asked here in the call, and I have all of them. So I'm going to pass in the other Etherpad, which I'm also writing right now. So
awesome.
I think that may answer your question, right?
Yeah, just for us to not forget anything.
Absolutely. And feel free to add those notes to the same Etherpad, Carlos.
All right, I'm going to add it. So I was taking notes here.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Good. Was a great question, though. And since we are changing the driver interface for creating SharePhone snapshot, we are adding a new parameter. So we were going through all the drivers, third-party drivers and first-party drivers, and we were adding the parent share just to stop breaking things.
Yep,
So
and
that's
some
why
unit
we
test
have.
somewhere should have failed if you did not touch a driver, right?
Yeah, that's right. Exactly.
Okay.
So this is starting for here. It's all tests, and the only thing
Can
that
we go
we
over the
didn't see.
migration, the
Yeah.
database changes?
Yeah. So let's see on the database models. So for the shard instance, we are adding in the progress field. It's a string, and as we observe on the snapshot that also has a progress field, and we are working on the same way. So the driver can provide this info as a string, or 10% or 50% and so on. And the share itself has a property to access the same info from the instance. And basically, this is the only change that we are providing to the model itself. From the API, from DB API, we have just a new method to get all share instance with some filters, and we add a status filter in order to retrieve all the share instance that are creating from snapshot there in the share manager.
Is there no way to just add status to the existing call? Is that
Uh,
too messy?
Let me see. It's host.
I think it's identical to the other call except the status field.
Yeah.
Yeah, that may become a little bit more generic. I think that would be nice.
Actually, we can. Yeah. This one
Yeah.
is the same with filters and
And exactly. So you just have that if condition moved up to the other method. It's exactly the same.
yeah.
And you wouldn't have to make a lot of changes, I would think, except in this file and the DB API file.
Yeah, right. Sure. A good point. Same thing that we can avoid, and just use this one, right?
Yep, I have that comment, don't worry.
Okay. And then we have the database migration. So the idea on the database upgrade is that I'll share instances that are created, are active. They will be updated to 100%, and the default will set to none. So if I have any other sharing another status, error states, and so on, or creating states, will be default to present as none. And the
A quick
database.
question about this. So are we going to break the data type in any way? It's just going to be null when it comes out, even through the API, right? The field is not going to be an empty string or something. I'm asking because how do you code against this? It's always going to be string or a string and a null, which is expected of any data type in SQL as well as JSON.
Sure. I'll forward this one to Carlos.
Could you
He
repeat,
was
please?
working on this.
Yeah, could you repeat, please, go.
So this thing with that, the particular logic over there is saying if it's available, I'm going to set every pre-existing share to 100%.
Yep.
What could change here? There could be shares that are in other states besides available when the cloud's upgraded, and they'll all have their status field set to none. And these are the only state shares where the status will be, sorry, the progress will be set to none, right? Or no, actually not. They're not the only shares. Every new share starts out with progress none,
Yeah.
and then it goes on to 0 or 200%. But once they are complete, they are expected to have a value. If they're not going to transition to available, you should see a null or a none field. Okay. I don't see how, coming from the perspective of now seeing how this is being used in, let's say, Golang or something like that, it kind of feels wonky to me. But there is some amount of defensive programming that they've done over there to expect null fields. So I think we're fine. Because this isn't the only one where null fields suddenly become populated.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay, cool. Yep. Sorry for the distraction. Go on.
No
No,
problem.
no problem.
So this is that we have for changes on the database, and at the end we have the progress field for the new API version, and we also have backward compatibility here. That if the current share is the status creating from Snapshot and older micro versions, we are just translating to status creating. This for the share interface and also for share instance interface. So both views will present the progress field, and we'll have these new status translated to creating for old microversions.
Should happen for share replicas as well, right?
Share replicas.
You
Yeah,
could.
Sure, replicas could
Chris-
have the progress fields, right?
No, actually not, right? I think when you're creating a new share replica from a snapshot, you'll never be able to do that. You'll have to create a new share replica. Okay, ignore that question.
API documentation reference. I don't have anything from this change.
That makes sense. So the dummy driver is implemented right in this change. We're
Right.
almost 15 minutes over, and I did want to ask if you guys want to do a demo with the NetApp driver, and I don't know whether we want to go deep into the NetApp code. Tom, what did you think?
Yeah. I'm not sure. I was planning to do a quick demo.
Okay,
I have an environment ready.
I think that will be more helpful for folks. I don't see Victoria here, but she's been having internet trouble today, so it's good we're recording. She'll probably come back to watch it.
Okay, so you're suggesting that we do first the demo and deploy, and then we go to the code, NetApp code?
I think so. What do you think?
Works for me. No problem at all. Should we talk a little bit about these other three changes? Or?
Yeah, we can come back to those.
The NetApp code is pretty close to being there. I think I only had.
Nice.
I mean, Gautam, you've been working on NetApp more recently than I, and you may think of some things, but I don't. I expressed the general worry about could we test all the possible topologies and all that, and the answer is basically downstream testing
Right.
for that, and I'm okay with that. I just had to think about it and think it through with people. But I do think maybe the functional testing that we have ought to allow for the semantics of a backend that can only do async. It's assuming that everything on the APIs that things become available instantly, and I'm afraid that with somebody may introduce a new backend where those tests will fail because they don't become immediately available. You wait for available state, so it all depends on the timing. But there are API tests that are assuming pretty quick state transitions. And probably should assume that. So I don't know if we want to keep those tests with a config option, for which kind of backends you have that do that,
Yeah.
or and add some for. And it
might
could
take longer.
future edition with the backends that do this is fine as long as we somehow keep track of the backlog. But have tests where the expected transition is really to a creating state right away.
Where do you see that? I mean, are we ever asserting on create?
Well, don't we on these API tests wait for the new share
to be available? Yes.
And that strikes me as, we can make the timeout longer for these backends, but that seems fragile. If you have it seems to get us into the, where we are with the migration tests with scenarios, where we have timeouts, we're subject to network delays, we're working on a very constrained resource environment upstream, so that we end up failing most of the times because of the infrastructure, not because of any problem in the actual code.
Yeah.
So I would like to keep the API tests crisp and reliable, and at the same time, which they are now as written with the backends that you have for ZFS and for NetApp for that matter. You're going to test with the synchronous path there probably,
well, it's going to.
Maybe we just need some backlog item that we can actually track for how we will do this when we add backends that have no synchronous implementation.
So a couple of things over there. First is, I mean, unlike the migration test, we wouldn't have external dependencies on another OpenStack service. So this entirely depends on the backend. And so you could play tricks around the backend like we do in case of replication. The deal being you're creating empty shares of 1 gig size. So ideally there is no data copy involved. So you would think, okay, I mean, I don't know. Yeah. So technically it should not take as much as the build timeout that is there by default, which is 300 seconds.
Yeah.
So that would be the expectation in the API test, but of course, when we start writing scenario tests, this could completely change. And I mean, for somebody running Tempest right now upstream, what we are going to play these tricks where the periodic interval will be reduced, as well as the share is just going to be 1 gig. There is no data in it, and we're expecting it to come back to be available within 300 seconds.
So probably it's okay, you're saying, and maybe it is. I'm always nervous about things that rely on timers
Right.
to
So
test
this one
for
introduces not.
functionality. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Because it depends on tuning. And you may be right that we're so far at the end of the dial, of the tuning dial on this, that it will be okay. This is certainly not a blocking kind of issue for me. It's just an opportunity to raise the question.
Yep. No, in theory, you would expect that with a slower environment, let's say you're going from one Ceph cluster to another Ceph cluster in your in I don't know, the test environment, and even the 1 gig share is going to take a while. In theory, this particular test, as it's written, might need to bump that build timeout and it's in Tempest config.
Yeah, and we don't want to bump build timeouts because the tests start coming out then and the jobs
Right.
take too long. I mean, I do really want to keep the API tests in particular. I'd like the scenario
Very simple. Yeah.
to be crisper, but certainly I don't want to start bringing the API tests into that territory. This can be something we talked about now and that we're aware of now if we have an idea for what we would do if we do get in trouble at that point.
Yep. Yep.
You could accept creating as a possible outcome, but then you still have cleanup issues, I guess, with Tempest, so.
No, we have a couple of options over there, and I was thinking of those in terms of the intermittent DB failure issues that we have. Uh, and we can think about all of those in one go, I guess. But this is another candidate. So are the replication tests, so are the migration API tests.
Yeah, we sometimes have issues with replication, with access rule updates, that things that are not deterministic and are time related, especially with concurrency in the mix.
Yep. Okay, we're over. I just wanted to quickly point out that I mean, we are intending to implement this in this FFS driver, if not across pools. I mean, it probably doesn't matter to us. It's always going to be this sort of a behavior where there will be a data copy that the driver has to initialize, and it has to be asynchronous. So it's really good that you're able to share your test cases. Thanks, Andre, for doing that. Uh, and Vida is, I mean, the Etherpad is there just in case you want to take a look at what the driver is getting tested with for when we have the SFFS implementation of this. Besides, of course, the upstream tests that are currently there.
But in terms of feature freeze, I may have some code review comments, but there's nothing, I don't have anything I see as blocking on any of this.
Does the feature patch depend on the test patch, or is it the other way around?
Sorry, which ones you're talking about?
The functional test patch,
Yeah.
it depends on the feature patch, right?
Yeah.
And the NetApp patch, can you remove the dependency on the test patch and to create another dummy patch that you can run your tests on? Because I'm not sure we're going to merge the tests, enthusiastically between today and tomorrow. I want to keep all the code changes separated from the test changes because we're not in, we're not in
This
any hurry
one
to do the tests
we don't need to merge these things right
until,
now.
yeah. And we can take another week or two to merge tests, but
Right. So,
make sure that none of these patches depend on the tests.
and then I create the way we work on the replication.
Yeah,
Okay.
pretty much.
We have a dummy here.
Yep.
And we have needle. Something like that. And for the dummy driver, NetApp driver will run the tests that were included here. Something like that. I can fix this later. Got it. And so we should move on to the demo or NetApp code.
I'm okay with that if everyone wants to see the demo.
What do you think, Gatanto?
Yes, please continue. I was scrambling to get my charger.
I was asking if we should start with the demo or with the NetApp code
Yes.
demo.
No, we can do the demo and probably understand stuff better.
Sure.
And I'm okay with not doing a thorough review of the NetApp code as much as we did the core code. I'm definitely more confident because you all have done the test cases that you've shared, as well as Tom's already taken a look at it. But we can go through it in case you want to show us something.
Yeah. So okay. I'm set up a new environment today. Actually, our development on taps were down hours ago. So set up some of the on tap that we use on the CI. So I'm working on the CI on tap, and I have only the GHSS files configured right now because my dev selects, as I say, were down, and I may provide a demo later. I don't know if you guys want with GHSS through, but I will explain how we are doing, which scenarios we are working. So I have a figure here. These are the scenarios that we are expecting. So basically on our tests, our development tests, we are creating two clusters. And one cluster we have a share server that has a pool, and another share server that has a different pool. In the second cluster, we have a single share server that has two pools. So if you think on scenarios that we have a parent share and we have a new share from Snapshot, he can land on the same pool. He can land on a different pool in the same share server. He can land. He can land on a different pool in a different share server, but within the same cluster. And another scenario will be to create in a different cluster and any other aggregator. What we support right now is on the same pool, same backend. That is just a simple a volume clone. And what I can show you guys is that I have already a parent. This will look like a bit weird because I'm accessing a Windows machine inside a browser.
Welcome to our world.
And
You're on a Windows machine through a browser.
yes, and
Yeah.
I'm accessing an Ubuntu VM inside.
Yeah, I was thinking of you guys when North Carolina, not you two in particular, because I don't know that you have a work from home office closure policy in Brazil yet. I think both on Adderall doesn't believe there is a virus. But anyway, in North Carolina, all the NetApp people can't go to the office, so far as I know. So they're all going through that Windows gateway to do anything, right?
Yeah, the difference here is that we do not have a direct access through a VPN to access the lab.
Yeah. Yes.
And our machines are not NetApp machines. So
yeah. So you have some freedom anyway.
So,
go ahead.
And
is that a side issue?
Then we have to access a virtual machine in a cloud. That's a Windows VM. And inside this virtual machine, we can access the NetApp lab.
That's super
okay,
predictive.
I'll shut up.
Let me try to. Are you guys are able to see?
I'm seeing the diagram.
Oh, sorry. Because I'm sharing just a Chrome window. Let me see if I totally forgot that I was sharing just a single browser right now. Let me share again. And what about now?
Now I can see your terminal.
Okay. I was talking about this Windows machine. Then now you can see.
Yeah.
I was typing here for a minute, and so I'm accessing this virtual machine through the browser.
So you were not just moving block diagrams, but also typing at the same time. Crazy.
And okay, I have configuration that is similar to this one. Actually, it's the same one. So I have a backend with two aggregates. They're using the same P server, and we have two other backends. They are on the same cluster, but this one is on aggregate 1, and this one on aggregate 2. So basically, this is a cluster, and this is another one. I'm using GHSS false right now. These P servers are here. My devs servers are here. And I have should be one single volume here. I already have a share here. And is this demo one. Okay. This all other are created in the on tabs that are down right now, so I cannot access them.
Okay, that's fine. Douglas, can you show us the Manila conf?
Manila conf. Something interesting is to be these three backends that are enabled, and in some place we have the scheduler flag set here. Use scheduler created from Snapshot. So if I go down to the end of, I'm using it at 8, 7, and 6. So these three are the backends that we are going to use. They are all the Terra Handle server false. So the P server name is here, and actually this P server is configured with one single aggregate in the backend. The same for this one is on the same cluster. Let me show here, same cluster, same host. And we have another vServer, and this vServer is configured with just this single pool. And the third one is a separated cluster. That we have another vServer, and this vServer has 2 aggregates. Anything else that you want to say?
No, the replication domain was what I was looking for, but that's cool though. I mean, I got a little distracted that you needed the root volume aggregate for DHS is false, but I think you were just using the same config for true and false, so I do
Yeah.
that. So
Yeah. We actually don't need we don't need this for sure, but I'm always using the same instance
yeah,
of
and just
different
change true into
configuration.
false. Yep,
This one also is not using GHSS true, and sometimes I let it here.
makes sense. Cool. So they're all in
And
replication domain 2. Okay, that's what we should see now.
yes, exactly. Let me see this first share. So this is on the host NetApp 6 aggregate 1. Availability on NetApp 6. And I believe that I already have a snapshot for it. The share 719C. And the idea is to create share from this snapshot. So the share distance of this is ID share type. Let me show you guys backend. 8. I'll try to find this one here. Okay. Sorry, I have some old shares on this environment. I didn't have time to clean up since the backend went down. But so the idea is to create let me see the share. Same. Let's provide an AZ NetApp 7 before issuing this. Let's see, so everything is okay. So 6, 7, and 8, and my share is here. As I show you guys earlier, NetApp 6 and NetApp 7 are in the same backend. So I'm going to create a share that should land here within the same cluster. from Snapshot, I don't need to provide share type since you will get from the snapshot parent, right? And let's see what happens. So we have a new share on creating from snapshot status. What is going to happen here is that the NetApp driver will create a clone, and it will create this clone and split from its parent, since we need to move these from one aggregate to another. So the first thing he will do is to create this clone and split, and this will take some time. And after that being completed, he will start to moving this new share to a different share server. So it's a different operation for NetApp. It's a volume he hosts. And at the end, if this share needs to move to a different pool, we will continue to use the move volume operation in order to move from one aggregate to another. So for this operation, will be like 3 operations on the backend. And
So you split the clone, rehome it, and then move it.
yes.
Okay.
So basically, what we first create this new share here.
Yeah.
He creates and splits, and when we host this asynchronous call, right away he end like here, but
It's not inside the
he's not
aggregate you want.
he is not in the same aggregate, so you need and we need to do a move operation. So
Okay.
this will be 3 operations in a single driver call. So we have this new share available, and that is the first one on NetApp 7, 122. So we are expecting to have this share in the other server, that's this one. And if we go to more details, let me see. You see that he's landing on the agree to, and also we have some QoS policy already applied as the same as the search term. Forgot to show you that my share type is JS false. That has snapshot support, K2 snapshot support, replication enabled, and a simple configuration of QoS.
Cool. So for your clone splitting, what's like your this thing? How you checking for this clone split? Your every time the driver calls in, or do you have another thread within the driver that's actually checking on the status of the clone split itself?
I'm always using that driver call for get status updates.
Interesting. Okay. And so, is there anything that you're doing that's heavy on that call besides checking the status of the clone split? Is there something that you're going to wait on that call for?
Yes, is that we have an issue with ONTAP that after splitting the volume from its parent and triggering a volume move, we get some errors saying that the split is still in progress, but in a call above, we just check that the that split was done. So for this scenario, we have retry.
So you're retrying within that call, is what I'm asking.
Yeah, we are doing a retry in this scenario only.
Okay.
And this is the only thing that can happen, and we expect that this retrying does not take too long, since I think that's just a timing for a synchronization on untap.
Okay. So, I mean, but with that retry, you'll have some sort of a timeout, right?
Yeah, we have. We are providing a config option for that also.
Interesting. No, where I'm getting at is you will be stuck within a driver loop. And basically the way, I mean, what we're relying on is Oslo services, you know, threading mechanism to invoke a periodic task. And that thread is going to be, occupied waiting on this timeout. If it is a timeout and a retry, isn't it better to just let go, give control back to the manager and retry when the next time something comes along?
Yeah, it's possible. We're not blocking the it at all. Mm.
Because bad things can happen if you end up blocking that thread. I mean, what we've seen, I mean, this sort of a thing happens with replication, and we try to redo the driver interfaces and adapt to not wait for a long time. We just give up control, and the reason was just this, because if the driver somehow starves this thread, you affect other things like the scheduler update and stuff. All because under the covers, I mean, Oslo service is lying. It only has X number of concurrent processes that it has spawned off, and it's going to bring down one of the concurrent workers, not just a green thread.
Yeah,
And
you're right.
so that's some area of consideration for you. I mean, right now, I mean, it's not a blocker as such, but it is something that you will see in can happen. Especially if, let's say, this is a really large clone and ONTAP's just telling you, "Hey, I'm done." Uh, but it takes a while for it to really, register in its system.
Yeah.
And you can still use that timeout that you're introducing, except that now it'll be a timeout of, you know, around the whole driver check mechanism itself. So you started off the first time you check the status, and then the driver asks you once every 5 minutes, "Hey, are you done with the share? Are you done with the share? Are you done with the share?" On I don't know, the 12th call or something, you're going to bail out and say, "I'm done. I'm done waiting."
Yeah, I can think about it on a better solution from this.
Yep.
But as I was saying, yeah, the implementation now you hold that trend, and could take a little bit to return.
I mean, do you have some sort of a thing on how much it could take in a
No,
worst case scenario? What have you
I
seen
don't.
in your testing environment?
Not at all, because actually the split was already completed, but
Hmm.
the on tap is saying that was ready made, and when we trigger right away the move operation, he gives us an error, and it uh, uh, just a few seconds or less than a second later, he would uh, accept the volume move.
Okay.
So I don't see a problem, because we are not doing data copy during this retry. Uh,
No, it
it's
makes sense if
it's
you're
just
not reattempting the data copy itself. And if it's just some sort of a glitch in this thing that you're trying to work around, and it's a few seconds
Yeah.
at most and stuff, but then there is no need to, worry
Uh,
about it as much.
a good idea should be we can append a log, the bug log, to see how many retries are taking
Yeah,
for these volume move starts.
yeah, you can, and empirically you can basically come back and fix the driver.
Yeah.
That's fine.
All right. So moving on. Let me see if I have any volume on these other clusters. So I only have the root volume. So right now I'm using the AZ to force the creating of this new share from the same snapshot from this demo to land in this different cluster in the NetApp availability zone. So can land on aggregate any of these two aggregates. So this should be on creating from snapshot. And sorry, not providing different names. And let us see what we have here. So we have a new volume here that's still on data protection. So we are creating a replica at this destination and waiting for the data to be copied. And after that, the NetApp driver will break this relationship and promote this share to a read and write type and create its export locations. So I already saw that we are releasing Snap Mirror, so creating export location, so this should be ready. So this end up in the destination. Yeah. Change it to the read and write. And let's see if we have anything left behind. This is the first share that is the demo share. And sorry, this is the demo share, the original share. This is the first copy that we created on a different share server. And the third one is the what we created using Snap Mirror. What do you guys think? Any suggestions?
No, I don't know if it's already in your test case. I'd just delete the next thing, the last share that you created, and check whether, it goes through fine.
Sure. Anything? So delete this one.
Yeah, the one, the replica.
To delete, right?
Yeah. Cool.
It's gone.
Nice.
Don't forget to show the QoS, but we can talk about later. But in our internal temps, we are trying to reproduce these tests, and
Yeah.
for each one, we are doing without QoS and with QoS.
Nice.
Mm,
Great job. I think this is a really cool feature for, NetApp consumers.
yeah, for sure. The idea is to use the same operations for migration also. So the idea is to different from creating a new share is to have a share being copied to a different destination, and after that splitting. And so
Yep.
this is at least the beginning of the this new migration operation. So it's good to have that experience, and there are a lot of operations on the background, as Tom commented on the patch.
Yeah,
And
absolutely. Yeah, there's way too much weightlifting happening inside the driver, but it's really cool to see it all like fall into place, and how simple the user experience still remains. It's just nothing complicated on the user side.
yeah, right. I didn't cover all uh, this scenario. I just did more complex. So creating for different feed servers when we have this rehost operation. That's a new operation that we are adding on the NetApp driver, and the one that are involving creating different cluster. We didn't was not able to do this creating on the same share server, but this is just a volume, a split and a
Yeah,
move. Here we have a split, a rehost, and a move.
makes sense.
But I think that the Tempest test is handling one of these. I'm not sure there are many scenarios. An interesting point. And all operations, all scenarios, we are creating a clone from a parent, and we are moving this share to a destination. So we are creating this new share with the ID from there for this new share, and we have just a different scenario that we have on the snapping viewer, that we create a clone here, and we start the snapping viewer between this clone and the destination share. So we have extra volume here that's a temporary share, and at the end we delete this one. This is the only scenario different that if you guys take a look on the code, you're going to see that
Yeah,
we have a temporary. So we have a clone here, a split clone. Split clone is not needed in this case. We just have a clone, and starting from this clone, we have a replica here, and then we can, after data copy,
no,
everything.
it's a good thing you're not splitting that clone over there, because a very good chance that when you're trying to move from one place to another, you could run out of space if you split clones. Uh, And I mean, that might
Yeah,
be your objective. So you don't want to
it's
split
really
clone and
important.
just consume space.
Right. Right. Um,
The only improvement I can see in this, and this was something I suggested even during the spec phase, was you're moving all of these things around. You might as well think of caching, because I mean, from the user perspective, if this is this simple, I mean, I'm sure the use case will evolve into saying, I'm always going to use create shares from Snapshot with these, and I expect that it's always going to magically happen, right? But then, if the driver is just wasting its time doing all of this, makes sense to just keep that clone around and do some sort of a lazy deletion based on, I didn't use it for 2 days, so I'm going to get rid of it, kind of a thing. It's an optimization for later.
okay. I don't. I think I
You didn't
don't
get it?
understand. I didn't get. You're
Okay.
saying that we have a clone, right?
Yeah, so you have not in the same place. Whenever you make a clone in another place, let's say even on a different aggregate or across into a different cluster, you keep that clone around, so that the next time you get a create share from Snapshot in a different aggregate uh, request, you can just clone the clone. You don't need to go through all of these steps. When you realize, hey, I already have this clone, I can create this in a heartbeat right now, because I've kept the snapshot around. It's like saying you're caching your snapshots wherever they're getting uh, you know scheduled to. kinds. And you'll have to do some cache management, which is, have some sort of an option where the driver just checks for things that are not being used as much and just gets rid of them. Um, and I mean, and it may not be required based on what the use case for this is, but if I see this in like a large scenario where multiple ONTAP clusters or multiple ONTAP backends are there, and I'm constantly going between stuff, I mean, that would actually make a lot of sense to implement caching. Whoa, I have a fire alarm going off.
All right.
So we are not hearing you, Gotham. Carlos, you heard that?
I'm not hearing him,
Okay,
but
everybody.
Hello, I'm
It's
back.
mute. Okay.
right.
Hi,
Is
and
it
sorry.
okay there?
Yeah, everything's fine. Something went on the stove and it triggered off the fire alarm right outside the kitchen. So,
Oh, great.
yep, everything's fine. Right, sorry
Okay.
about
Right.
that. And I think that's really cool. I think we're I don't know. This is exciting. Certainly, I'm sure even Red Hat customers will be really happy that you're doing this. I know this is going to make your immediate customers that are requesting this feature quite happy.
Yeah, sure, for sure. So I don't know, guys. I can't give you a quick overview on this main function if you guys want. And the other changes, I think that won't be a problem. They are just NetApp requests to the storage itself. I don't know how you guys are with the
You
time.
walked us through it, so I don't see a problem. Uh, and mainly this is stuff that's concentrated within the driver, so I'm not really that concerned about breaking something. If anything, it's going to break the driver, and so I mean it's probably going to be okay with if we just go ahead and take a look at it outside of this meeting.
Okay. Okay.
But thank you for the offer, though. This is really cool.
And so, anything else that we can do? And we talk about it to having more tests on downstream. And Andrea was working on that. He started implementing different tests. So since we are implementing on downstream and on our internal repo, we are able to choose a proper backend to land the destination. So we can identify backends that are in different clusters or are in the same clusters and different share servers, for example. And we can have almost all the scenarios covered by our internal Tempest. What the issue right now is that our infrastructure cannot handle yet this kind of configuration. So we need to do some internal code changes in our device manager, and Andre is working on that. So the tests are passing in his environment, but are not passing yet on doing the internal NetApp Tempest because the CI itself is not ready for that. So I cannot provide the log itself. I
No,
paste.
that's fine, and you're good to bring that up. But we're not expecting anything from those tests to be shared upstream. It's good that you shared the test cases. I asked a question over there that if you could think of how you could distill that and make a scenario test, and you could add that as an idea to the scenario test spec, for instance. As long as there's nothing backend specific as far this thing, we could definitely have a scenario test around it.
Yeah, it'll be a good idea to have also scenario tests. Currently, we were running scenario tests for IPv6, but I'm not sure if it's up and running right now. Andrea was working on that, but IPv6 was we found a lot of issues on configuring network on our infra, and I'm not sure. I think that we have still at least one test failing. So I think it was disabled. So
Okay.
that's why we're not planning adding scenario tests right now. We still need to fix our CI to run the scenario tests in other jobs and like before maybe.
Makes sense, and that isn't specific to this feature, but that's a good update. I'll probably follow up with you on that later because I mean I'm not sure what the status on scenario testing in general is. Um, so we'll take it again to another PTG. We've had quite a lot of discussions around it, and we ourselves are trying to figure it out within Red Hat. That's for sure. You will see a lot of patches come in from either Vida or Liron, and actually reminds me, I don't think we've introduced Liron in any of the meetings. Uh, but he works from a totally different time zone than the rest of us, so you won't see him in meetings often. But he's been trying to get the scenario tests working again properly, and it includes a lot of stability fixes and things for things that we were ignoring upstream. But yep, all of that sidebar. Uh, but I don't want to take any more time on this meeting to discuss those. Specifically, we'll talk about them again in the PTG, I think. Uh, is there anything else in this patch chain that we need some clarifications on? That's hard to get.
I don't think so. This is just uh, an easy review, just enabling a flag on the DevStack plugin and the ZFS on Linux itself is pretty simple. Also.
Okay,
It's up
awesome.
to you.
Yeah, no, I
Your
think we identified some changes. So I think if we make those changes, that we should be able to go ahead and re-review, and we'll get stuff merged ASAP. And by ASAP, I'm still going to have to write a request out to the release team. I think to that we're going to miss the 1500 UTC deadline. We'll try hard to work with that. But the point being, we gotta be releasing the clients, Manila UI and Python Manila client. Although I might have to talk to Tom about Manila UI. I see some confusing messaging, but that's mostly it. And you guys have no impact on Manila UI right now, so it's just Python Manila client. Cool. All right. Thank you so much for showing us all of this and taking the time off your day. It's already the end of your day for you. But if
problem.
you can go ahead and commit those changes, and if they're not too big, and we're okay, if you think that some of those changes, if they don't affect the API or something, hold off. You can make a follow-up patch as a bug fix or something. It's not a breaking, as long as it's not a breaking change. driver doc strings and stuff like that, you can always improve. Yep.
Sure thing. Great.
Awesome. All right. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining. I'm going to end the recording right now. If I can figure out how to. Yeah, there it is.